Three, two, one. Welcome back to another episode of Michigan's Own Fit, Jacked, and Stacked. You know, this is kind of one of those episodes I scratch my head going into it because I think to myself, Michigan's Own Fit, Jacked, and Stacked, right? We have kind of our own path a little bit on the things that we discuss, much of which pertain to the state of Michigan, of course. And then I do the Gym Life podcast, which you guys know if you haven't been on there, check it out, of course, in Gym Life Media. That is largely more international or a broader audience because of the guests I have on there and a lot of the things that I talk about. So, you know, these two podcasts, or this one and that one, of course, from time to time, tend to cross over. So as I was looking at kind of all the content that I wanted to discuss today, I thought to myself, boy, where does this better suited? And I think sometimes it's just kind of like a podcast that kind of, you know, has both in mind, I guess. And maybe that's kind of this podcast here today. And maybe fitting, right? Coming off of a big holiday break, not quite, but almost there, that a lot of us are enjoying ourselves out there. And a lot of what we're seeing in large part is from everywhere. Of course, the Arnold's coming up and things that we're anticipating. And of course, the Olympia that I was just at. And of course, everybody wants to hear about that. At least I think so. It was a great time. But in large part, I think today's topics kind of all cross over to both podcasts a little bit. So maybe as I'm thinking about it out loud here, when I'm just rambling on, I'm thinking perhaps I'll just cut it up a bit and use them in both platforms. And that way everybody can kind of, you know, have an opportunity to, be able to share maybe these thoughts, at least to both audiences. And I know a lot of you guys out there listen to both. I know a lot of you guys out there, and thank you, by the way, that support Michigan's Own Fit, Jacked, and Stacked. Are from other states and other regions, which is awesome. And I appreciate that. If you notice on our Instagram, a lot of the people that follow Fit, Jacked, and Stacked on our Instagram are from, different states down south and out west. And, so that's really cool. And I think in large part because a lot of our content resonates with a broader audience, and it should. Not only that, we got a lot of cool shit going on here in Michigan. And if I was on to a podcast and heard a little bit more about Texas or Alabama or Florida, I think I'd be a little interested, I guess. And then we don't overwhelm it necessarily either. I just think some of the stuff that we have going on here in the state does have a little national appeal, if you will. It resonates with a lot of people out there. And, we'll continue to kind of go down that path a little bit and share with everybody because I think we're all pretty proud of where we come from and all the stuff that we are part of. And we want to share it with everybody. So anyhow, that's kind of my setup for today's show with all the stuff we're going to talk about. Some of which, of course, is just Michigan, but you guys get excited about that if you're not from the state because we've got some big events in Michigan, of course, that are more nationally recognized as well. And one of these events that I'm going to talk about here today is kind of, I guess it would be, I think we've got participants from everywhere in the state of Michigan. They're going to be a part of that War of the North up there in Traverse City with George Bullard's promotion. I think several people from out of state as well. So in any case, welcome back. It's been a long holiday, it seems. Oh my God, was this never ending or what? I think when you put Christmas decorations up and you start getting ready because you got kids probably by the 1st of December, maybe just after Thanksgiving, these holidays tend to be like really long, or is it just me? But I am like ready to get back on schedule here. My sleep's off, everything's off. Workouts, yeah, I'm getting them in. I think a lot of guys are getting them in. I mean, I'm sure carved up on every one of them, so I'm feeling pretty good. That's a fact. And it's just kind of fitting them around all the fun, of course, because, you get to work out, maybe going to work, maybe not going to work, that kind of thing. And there's all these holiday parties going on, whether it was before Christmas, or now leading up to New Year's. Of course, this episode's coming out on the 30th. You guys will get it Friday. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve. So many of you out there who are listening to it right now, pre-recorded, are getting ready to celebrate New Year's Eve. And I'd be curious as to what everybody's doing, right? I mean, it's always kind of one of those things that do you go out? Do you not go out? Is it more of a at-home thing with some pizzas or some good food? And hopefully you guys aren't sticking to the diet on New Year's Eve. I mean, you got to enjoy yourself a little bit, right? Bottle of champagne and some crab legs and some appetizers. That's what I always think about when I think about the holidays, is all the great appetizers that we can indulge in out there. And my refrigerator's been full of them for the last 2 weeks. So talk about doggy bags. Everywhere I go, I'm bringing them home. So. But what have I been up to? I know a lot of you out there have paid attention to, at least I think, whether you're a bodybuilder, powerlifter, strongman, gym bro, gym gal, that kind of thing, was the Mr. Olympia, of course, which was last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and as many of you know out there, I mentioned it enough on my podcast, on all of them, as a matter of fact, that we were going to be out there. And I say we, that was Monica Brandt, myself, co-hosting her show, our team, of course, from Gym Life Media, and then, of course, Don from ADL. But by the way, Don, I'm wearing your shirt I finally got from you. You know, I'm working with Don for over the last year now with a lot of these shows that I'm, Full Send Sports. If you guys don't know, I'm doing a show called Full Send Sports for ADL Live. That's a prelude to all their live streams that they do. And over the last month and a half or so, it's been a little downtime, but I've been wanting a shirt from Don for the last 7 or 8 months now. And I finally, of course, I cornered him in Vegas to give me one of those shirts. And of course he did. He actually gave them to me, a cat and a shirt. So shout out to ADL Live. Boy, they're lighting up the world right now and all the great stuff that they're doing when it comes to live streaming, all these great events and all these great sports that we love out there. IFBB, powerlifting, arm wrestling, MMA, of course, strongman. What else you got going on out there, Don? Huh. I know there was something else too. I'm missing it now. But anyhow, man, he's all over the place with all the great stuff that he's doing right now with his live stream and lending his expertise to all these events to provide a really, cool look into these events from a spectating standpoint, of course. With everything he does is top notch. His camera angles are top notch. I mean, I'm kind of learning from the best, if you will. I'm mentoring a bit under Don when I see him at these events or I talk to him about these events. And we've talked about a few events now that are actually coming up here. 2023 is going to be a busy year, really busy year. And we just got on the phone last night and we were talking about a couple things, of course, MMA shows and an event that I'm going to talk about here a little bit later in this production. So shout out to Don and Nancy from ADL. I know the whole community out there loves those guys, and they should. They're two of the best people I've ever met, and they certainly, wear their hearts on their sleeve, and they champion on all the great stuff that we have going on in all of our sports. And we're blessed to have them because, as we know, a lot of our sports deserve more recognition. We want more people to get involved in our sports. We want more spectators involved, so more sponsors will get involved. And Donnie and Nancy and ADL Live are a big component in making that happen because they reach a broader audience for all of us. And again, I'm grateful for that because in the sport I love, of course, most of all, that being strongman, we need all the visibility we can get. And in large part in 2022, Don and Nancy have provided a platform now that everybody can spectate this awesome sport of strongman. And now everything else, arm wrestling, MMA, powerlifting, bodybuilding, you name it. So anyhow, ADL Live, I'm representing them today with my new T-shirt from Don. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. So the Olympia, yeah, we went out there with all those guys. We had a great time. Boy, where do I even start? I'm like, wow, I got a question online the other day that said, what was your best experience at the Olympia? Honestly, I don't even know if I can narrow it down to one. I mean, I was in awe. I was awestruck. I was fan-struck. The stuff that I was able to participate in. I'm sitting next to Monica Brandt for 2 days, a legend in the sport of fitness and bodybuilding, co-hosting her show with her. So I'll start there. That was freaking awesome. Monica and I had some great chemistry, too. If you haven't had a chance to check out our interviews, they're on Gym Life Media and on the Monica Brandt show. They were awesome. I mean, just watching Monica interact with all these people, and I mean a ton of people that just remember her and were big fans of hers. I mean, it was just so cool to see. And she's such a humble person. I mean, she was tearing up half the time, guys. I mean, it meant so much to her that these people, that she changed some lives, of course, and impacted some people with, her being in the industry as a woman at a young age in a time where, there was a lot of bullshit going on, of course, when it came to giving women the type of exposure they deserved, or maybe not even recognizing them for, the way they were looking, or maybe stereotyping them, I should say, where Monica came out with this great package of beauty and strength and muscle. And, she pioneered that look a little bit for a lot of what we're seeing out there today. So a lot of these women that were coming up to her were just, paying thanks to her. I mean, they were just really saying, listen, it was you who changed my life. When I saw you and I saw you interviewed and I saw you doing the things you were doing within the fitness community, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I heard this story over and over again from all these different people from all walks of life. And it was just really amazing to be a part of that and to witness that and to be there with her and co-hosting with her. It really was just awesome. I mean, honest to goodness, it was awesome. That was a huge, I guess you can say that was my number one. And my number 2 thing was being at the Olympia. Of course, who doesn't want to go to the Olympia? I know in recent years it hasn't been something that's been widely talked about in respect to maybe like the Arnold and some of these other fitness expos that are going on out there. But I will tell you guys this. The Olympia is making a stand to be that, well, be what it should be, right? The greatest fitness, I guess you can say, show or expo in the world, because it is the Olympia, the biggest stages of them all. And they didn't fall short. That Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas was a perfect spot for them. The conference area, or not conference, but the convention area was huge, of course. You can only imagine the spectacle of this. And I got to witness sort of the building of this city, right? This big expo over the course of 2 days, because Don and I started setting up our booth on Wednesday morning, and we were like one of the first people in this place. And as you looked around, the landscape was huge. It looked like it was a mile across and a mile deep. None of this was set up, and I kept thinking to myself, how the hell is this going to get set up, or how is this going to look? By day 2, you kind of saw it coming a little bit more. That was Thursday night. Thursday night rolls around. I'm still looking around going, I'm just not seeing it. We got there Friday morning, and let me tell you, it was like a city built overnight. The type of vendors they had there, of course, were the who's who of the industry, as you would imagine. Mutant, Rain, Celsius, all the different supplement manufacturers, Legendary Foods, of course, which is right across from us, and all these different sponsors or different companies that were been a part of our industry since we can remember, and then, of course, some new ones that have more recently come on the scene. And they had all their representatives there, and the light shows were amazing. I mean, some of these booths were bigger than life. They were completely LED'd out, and with all these different types of things to capture your attention, and the things that they were doing at these booths to kind of make themselves a bigger part of that expo. It was nothing short of amazing. Fuad had his podcast. You guys all know Fuad and his bodybuilding podcast. He had his podcast booth right in the center of this thing, and it was like a glass, as you can picture, like a podcast booth being kind of soundproof, right? It was a glass from 4 sides, and he was podcasting from inside this booth, which I thought was really cool. Something I would love to do in the future, of course. That's a pretty penny. I mean, hey, guys, I need a few more sponsors out there, so anybody who wants to join me, let me know. But he had a great setup there, and he was bringing in all these big names, and just kind of seeing that and some of the stuff that I've listened to and seeing these faces and names around that place were just amazing. So that would be number 2. The expo itself was just everything I thought it would be and more. And then number 3, of course, and probably a real close first, second, and third, was the people I met. I mean, I was literally just awestruck. Listen, when I can sit next to somebody that I grew up watching, like Magnus for Magnuson, 4 times world's strongest man, and have an opportunity to sit there and chat with him, and then, of course, have him sit with me so I can interview him, it was just amazing. Honest to God, I was just like, I was fanboying out. I'm not going to lie, just about with every one of these people, I was fanboying out. I got a chance to meet Lee Priest and chat with him, Branch Warren, Victor Martinez. These are guys that I remember flipping through the magazines as I'm growing up, and just looking at these guys and idolizing them and their physiques and going, my God, they're bigger than life. And they were. When I met them, they were bigger than life. These guys are still giant men. Honestly, Victor Martinez looks like he could have probably competed in the Olympia, which was amazing. And I asked him if he was going to do the Masters, and you have to watch the interview for his response. But he's a guy certainly that's capable of doing the Masters Olympia next year at 49 years old. Looks fantastic. And then, of course, just getting to the personalities of all these guys, and having an opportunity to kind of meet them on a different level where we weren't just talking about bodybuilding or working out or stuff that they would, regurgitate over and over again from magazines and articles that pertain to bodybuilding and their lifestyle. I mean, we're just talking real stuff, Lee Priest and his race car driving, and Victor Martinez and his family, and Branch Warren and his ranch in Texas and horseback riding. I mean, you really got to know a lot of these people, or at least I did, on a level that generally you wouldn't get a chance to maybe have the opportunity to, or the time, I should say, to chat with people and kind of get to know them and get a snapshot of their lives, just not necessarily what they're involved in. And that was really, really cool. So that, to me, would be on top of that list as well. There really were no down things when it comes to the Olympia. I mean, I can go on and on about all the stuff that I love there, but the opportunity, of course, to work with Monica and co-host and then meet these people and see that whole spectacle take place, it was just, it was amazing, guys. And I encourage every single one of you out there, and I know a lot of you listening to this show more than likely have been to all these expos like I have over the years. My first time to the Olympia. But if you haven't, don't hesitate. Get to one, fight the crowds, do what you have to do to, get a hotel room with a couple of your buddies, and just get down there and be a part of these things. They are truly amazing. They're very inspiring. Of course, all I wanted to do was get back to working out. And it was, after you meet these people, it's like, okay, time to get the work done now. Because they inspire you, and they of course, they have always inspired me, but meeting them in person and looking how awesome these guys still looked at the ages that they were, it just let me kind of just sort of sit back and go, yeah, all right, we're doing the right thing here. All of us are doing the right thing. This is really awesome. So, yeah, that was really cool. I did get a chance to go to Iris Kyle's Powerhouse Gym in Las Vegas. That's a pretty good story, too. The day prior to, the day Don and I set up on Wednesday, the next day, Thursday morning, I woke up and I said, well, I'm going to get a workout in, so I figure I better get to a gym somewhere. It was between Dragon's Lair and Iris Kyle's Powerhouse Gym out there. And I kept hearing things about the Dragon's Lair, how it was kind of it was smaller than everybody thought it was going to be. And it was really packed with a lot of media, and it wasn't a place really you were going to get a workout in. You might run into some bodybuilders and things. And I think a lot of people were kind of, migrating to these gyms to kind of, as anybody would, right? You're in Olympia in Las Vegas. You're going to try to run into some popular names and things and want to see them, maybe training or just have a chat with them or get a picture. So Dragon's Lair I stayed away from, but I thought Powerhouse Gym would be a perfect opportunity to maybe see a few people, but also get a workout in. So I got there, and nothing short of amazing. Probably the coolest bodybuilding gym I've ever been in my entire life. By far, if you're a bodybuilder and you're able to go to that gym every day, oh yeah, you're next level bodybuilding. I'm not suggesting you can't get the work done everywhere else, but you was certainly getting the work done at the Powerhouse Gym in Las Vegas. Absolutely amazing facility, wall-to-wall equipment that you can only dream of using, and it was just a spectacle. So I managed to get a pretty good workout in there, and as I was working out, because I got there relatively early, the place just started filling up, and I mean filling up. There's buses of people coming over just to be a part of that scene over there because all these bodybuilders are there. Ran into Fuad, of course. He was there. His entourage. There were several women wellness and figure competitors there. I don't know, not really familiar with that scene, so nobody that I recognized. And then, of course, a lot of other. Charles Glass was there training somebody. If you guys don't know who Charles Glass is, he's arguably the biggest name in coaching in the history of bodybuilding. You've seen him in every magazine training the big stars, much like Hanny Rambod. He's that guy, or was that guy 20 years ago and still is today. So that was really cool. And I got a good workout in there. So, and hey, listen, the drop-in fee for Las Vegas, you guys bring your pocketbooks, man, or bring your bank cards. It was $45 to drop into that gym for one workout. I think it's probably like that just on Olympia weekend because they got all these great stars there. And, of course, they can probably cash in a little bit more. And I don't blame them. What the hell, It's really tough as a gym to make it anyhow. And if you're providing not only the equipment and the workout, but you're going to throw in a bunch of big celebrities there while I'm working out, or chances of an opportunity to get maybe a picture or a conversation, I think we'd all spend $45. I know there's a few of us out there right now who are going, fuck all that. I'd never spend that kind of money. But I think you would. I think if you saw this place, you saw who were there, you'd probably spend a little bit more than that. So by the time I left, there was about maybe 100 people in that gym or more. It was shoulder to shoulder at that point. It became more of a destination to go hit before the Olympia than it was actually a place to work out. But I certainly enjoyed my workout there, got one in, and was able to talk to a few people and get some pictures as well. So, yeah, the Olympia, really, really awesome. How about the turnout, guys? I mean, this might be the first time, the actual Olympia itself, right, the competition. It might be the first time that I can remember that there wasn't any controversy over the top three. I mean, I listen, I'm not a judge of bodybuilding. God, I'd have to stab myself in one eye to be a judge because most of them get it wrong anyhow. But this might be the first time that many of us can agree that they got the actual first, second, third right anyhow. And you can argue fourth, fifth, sixth, and all that stuff. Who cares, right? Top three podium finishers, which, of course, were Hadi Chopin, from Iran, you had Derek Lungsford, and you had Nick Walker, and these guys looked absolutely amazing. Big Ramy finished fifth, I think. There was a really close fifth and sixth there, and he didn't even get a sniff, and in large part because these guys were so well conditioned at the size they were, carrying the kind of muscle that they were carrying. I wouldn't necessarily call them mass monsters. I know a lot of guys say that about Nick Walker, but when he's on stage and he's lean like that, I mean, yeah, he's blowing your doors off because he's a pro bodybuilder. But Hottie and of course we all know Derek Lungsford is a great guy and a great bodybuilder. They just looked good, and they got it right. I mean, you could argue maybe Nick Walker and Derek could have switched spots if you wanted to be a little particular about it. I don't know. I mean, you could argue that, but I don't think anybody is truly arguing the outcome of that show other than Big Ramy wondering why the hell he was left out. And it was obvious. He didn't come in. He didn't peak at the right time. But in any case, that was pretty much spot on. And then, of course, I think the highlight of the weekend for a lot of people, including myself, because I'm a big fan of this guy, maybe one of the coolest dudes in all the sport. One would argue he's as popular as Arnold Schwarzenegger was back when Arnold Schwarzenegger was doing this stuff. I know, guys, that's a huge statement for me to make. But Chris Bumstead is that guy right now. I mean, he is world famous for being a bodybuilder, a classic bodybuilder, and he by far is the most popular person in bodybuilding by a landslide. And he's that person for good reason. His physique, everybody would love to have. I don't care if you're a powerlifter, strongman, bodybuilder. You can talk about loving mass monsters and all this shit all you want. I'll give it to you. But you can't tell me you wouldn't want Chris Bumstead's physique. That dude is built like a statue. He's built like something from another world. He is Arnold-like with the way he looks and how well he looks compared to his competition. Nothing short of fantastic and amazing. And I'm a huge fan of this guy. I'm a bigger fan of who he is as a man and a person than a bodybuilder because he is equally as awesome in that respect as well. And he gave a speech, an acceptance speech, after he'd won his fourth, of course, which was this time around. And it was just very heartfelt. And if anybody saw that, or if you haven't seen it or listened to it, Google it on YouTube and watch his acceptance speech. It's exactly what anybody would want to hear. It wasn't contrived. He didn't make this up or pre-recorded. I mean, it was really from the heart. And what he was saying, essentially, as I'm paraphrasing, because he thought about retirement, and everybody's going, retirement? You're on top of the world. Why would you retire? And this is what goes through a lot of guys' minds, right? Like, there's got to be something more for me out there. And I don't know where his mind was coming from when he was talking about that. But I think he kind of gave you some hints in his speech, because he was talking about how influenced he was by a young man who was dying of cancer. And the words that he was given by this guy were, enjoy the moment, because these moments don't last forever. And the way that he articulated that speech and talked about how that resonated with him, it was very heartfelt, and you could just feel what he was feeling. And when he said, "Don't worry, I'm not retiring. I'm going to enjoy every moment of this," and that was a guy who realized that, maybe he was taking it for granted that he was who he was, and he was a big of a player in an industry that had so many great people involved in it, and that he was this champion. And I love to hear that, because I always hate to hear champions say, "I'm going to retire," because a lot of us would say, "Why? You're on top of the world. Enjoy the moment." And I think Chris Bumstead finally kind of figured that out for himself and shared that with everybody on stage, where he's going to enjoy the moment. And boy, this guy is just excited to be a part of bodybuilding. You can feel his energy. And boy, it's exciting for all of us, because we know he's going to come back in 2023 and get back on that stage again. And I have no doubt he's going to win again. I mean, he's just got himself in a real good position, both mentally and physically, to do well and appreciate where he's at. And I get a feeling, even if he doesn't win, God forbid, I'm not jinxing you, Chris, he's still going to be that guy. And anyhow, I can go on and on, right? I got a man crush, C-Bum for sure. He's a cool dude, and I wish I would have had an opportunity to meet him. I think everybody wanted to meet him there. He'd moved through with his entourage, I think, one time, and because he was competing, a lot of those guys don't want to spend too much time in the expo outside of maybe what their sponsors are requiring him to do, to sign a few autographs and shake a few hands. But, these guys are all thinking about competing and getting back on stage on Saturday night. And, the expo goes Friday and Saturday. So the opportunity to really get out, enjoy the expo, and enjoy the fans is not as easy as it, maybe you would think it would be, especially if you're in competition. I think there was an after party on Saturday. We didn't go to it. We were all pretty burned out at that point. I had a great dinner with the crew as Monica and Brad took us all out to the Bellagio, and it was a great way to finish off the weekend. I don't think any of us were disappointed. It was awesome, and I'm gonna I'm looking forward to going back. Hey, we had a few people come up to the Monica Brandt show, and they want us to be a part of the Arnold and Elysian Expo and all these different events that are going on out there over the next year in 2023. Monica and I had a conversation quickly, as did her business manager and her husband, Brad, and myself. And yeah, it looks like we're going to try to get to these events and replicate the kind of experience we had at the Olympia at all these expos that are going to be going on in 2023 around the United States, at least 3 or 4 more of them. And I can't tell you how excited I am for that, because we're going to dial this in even better, I'll tell you. We're going to get it tight. We're going to get our production tighter, and we're going to be able to produce a lot better content for all you guys. And, of course, for me, just meet some amazing people. I can't wait. Oh, boy. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Quick drink of water here. I'm already wearing out. You can tell my voice with all this great time I've had over the holidays is starting to catch up with me. Drink of water. So outside of the great athletes and athletes anyhow, that I've just spent some time talking about, that I had a chance to meet, one of the other cool highlights of that expo, and also the Arnold, by the way, and I think every expo is starting to take part in this, is there's this part of it called Olympia University. And I think Arnold, it's called the Arnold Educational, where they bring in all these great minds from all over the world to talk about specific things within our fitness and wellness and lifting community, pertaining to testosterone replacement, blood work, nitric oxide. Nathan Payton was there talking about nutrition, of course. You know Nathan, I mentioned him. He's trained 7 of the world's strongest men over the last 15 years. And his list of people that he trains is as long as my arm, from NFL players to amateur athletes to movie stars, you name it. He's a nutritionist guru. He was there, as were a lot of different smart people. And I say smart people because I got a chance to interview probably about 10 of them over the course of 2 days, including Nathan Payton, including Dr. Nathan Bryan, who I'll get to in a minute, is probably one of the coolest people I've ever met. That's uber smart. He's on the cutting edge of some new, I guess you could call it new, cutting edge of new technology, and also a new supplement for the industry, I guess reinvented. But anyhow, we got a chance to talk to a lot of these people, and boy, they were smart. They were putting me to the test with try to come out with some decent questions to ask all these people without sounding like a total musclehead. Oh my God. It was stressful, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I did my research, of course, to some degree, but when you're sitting down with somebody like a doctor or, somebody that's just an expert in their field, you try to challenge them with a question maybe they haven't heard before, or articulate it differently, so maybe you can get a different response out of them. And at the very least, just don't sound stupid. And that was really what I was trying to do, just not sound stupid. I think I did. You guys can go back and watch the interviews, but I mean, I had my moments, don't get me wrong, like I always do, even on this show. But Dr. Nathan Bryan was one that I gravitated towards, of course, because many of you guys know, this isn't going to be an infomercial, by the way, but I am sold on this shit. I'm telling you, I'm sold. Dr. Nathan Bryan is one of the researchers that was tasked with the development, or the vehicle, the delivery system for nitric oxide. We're all familiar with nitric oxide, or we probably are. We don't know it. Nitric oxide is what we're talking about when we want to get that pump in the gym, right? That pre-workout that includes nitric oxide in it. And nitric oxide, as Dr. Nathan Bryan would put it, is the holy grail of cardiovascular health. It has more benefits in the general health and welfare of society than it does just in the bodybuilding community. However, we gravitate towards it in the lifting community because of that pump, that nitric oxide. You hear about beets, and you hear about this, arginine and some of these things that can mimic the effect of that pump you get in the gym. But nitric oxide is really that product, right? It's that I don't know what you want to call that supplement, that chemical that takes place. Your body actually creates nitric oxide. And over the years, like much of what we create in our body, it starts losing its ability to create it at a high level, just like testosterone and other hormones or other things that pertain to things in our body that our body is supposed to create for us. As we get older, we create less of it. And as a result of all these other things that we bring into our bodies, and I mean other things like chemicals and things we eat and things we shouldn't be breathing and shouldn't be consuming, nitric oxide plays less of a role than to be able to rid our bodies of a lot of these toxins, and continue to put ourselves in a state of homeostasis that allows us to perform better. If that makes any sense. I'm going to have Dr. Brian on. It's a lot to digest, but what nitric oxide is supposed to do and how we're supposed to put it in our bodies or deliver it in our bodies has been skewed by the industry for years now. We've all been duped again, and I said it on my show when I interviewed Dr. Nathan Bryan. We're duped once again. He actually developed a machine that tests whether or not there's actually nitric oxide in much of these workout supplements out there. And come to find out, to no surprise, he actually had this at the Olympia, by the way. To no surprise, 99% of these supplements that claim they had nitric oxide in it didn't have nitric oxide in it. Oh boy, big surprise, right, guys? We hear that all the time in our industry, in our lifting community, that what is supposed to be there isn't be there, so what the hell are we paying for? Well, he not only is Dr. Nathan Bryan a super smart person that understands nitric oxide, was a part of developing that delivery system with the guys that won the Nobel Prize for it 20 years ago. He's also a philanthropist. He's a guy that believes in doing the right thing. He's a God-fearing man. He believes in helping humanity. It's not all about the dollar to him. Matter of fact, one would argue the money that he makes, he does so much good with it. And I've got stories for you, but we're going to get him on here. That, he's also, he uses this platform that he has and the ability to do what he's doing to give back to others on many, many, many different levels, not just providing ethical practice with his supplements. And that's what I love the most about Dr. Bryan. He's a great guy. And I had just a good conversation with him in general, not just about nitric oxide, but they broke my balls about everything, guys. This guy is super smart. He's like, quit doing this and quit doing this and quit doing this. Because it's killing all of us. And I'm not going to get into all that stuff with you here today, but you have to check out Dr. Bryan, Dr. Nathan Bryan. I think it's Nathan J. Bryan on YouTube, Dr. Nathan J. Bryan. It's just absolutely amazing. And what he's going to introduce into our community, into the general public in 2023 will revolutionize health and wellness. It will make all of us better, whether you're a competitor, whether you're just an everyday gym person or fitness or wellness person who tries to live a healthy lifestyle. And quite honestly, whether or not you're just a guy that sits on the couch every day and doesn't get a lot of movement at all. Listen, it's not a product that's going to save you, but it's certainly going to be a product that if you live a good lifestyle, it's going to help you in a huge way. But even if you were just a normal person that walked the streets and went to work every day and, came home and found yourself on the lazy boy for a few hours a night, this product is going to help you as well. It's just going to make you feel better. It's going to make you heal quicker. It's going to make you live longer. It really is amazing. And I had a great opportunity to talk to him about it to great length. And I'm not going to butcher it here on my show today because there's so much detail about this and there's so much interesting information on the way nitric oxide works, how it's supposed to be delivered to your body, and the type of response that you're going to get from this that I'm not going to do it justice by rambling on. I'll have Dr. Bryan on with me in the next couple months, and we'll get it from the horse's mouth himself, and you guys are just going to be blown away by all the stuff that he's going to tell you about. Nitric oxide. Remember, not nitrous oxide, guys. Nitric oxide. As my car buddy last night thought perhaps I was talking about the laughing gas. All right, another drink of water. Oh, geez, this is a long show. Hopefully you guys are just hanging in there with me, right? I throw so much at you all the time. What other things about the Olympia? Well, it shouldn't go without mentioning that the America's Strongest Man and America's Strongest Woman were there. I'll get to that in a minute, though. I'll talk about powerlifting real quick. The powerlifting at the Olympia. Okay, this is going to sound negative. Matter of fact, it might sound negative for both. I'm not trying to be negative. Listen, they're going to get better at what they do. I have no doubt powerlifting is going to be better at the Olympia in coming years because they're going to figure it out. It was kind of done differently on these platforms. And, they had a lot of big names there. I think Joe Sullivan was there and his girlfriend, Brianni T, and some other people were deadlifting. And getting some instruction, that sort of thing. I thought it was kind of watered down. There wasn't a lot of excitement there. And I think the way that they presented it was a little bit off. It was like, I don't know, it kind of felt like you were just sort of, in a small space in a gym or something. It didn't have a lot of when I think of like powerlifting or something, or I think about strength in general, that sort of showcasing it like at an expo, I always go back to that animal cage and watching people do great things in an animal cage, and just sort of the pageantry of what that cage provided, where everybody's standing on the outside of it. You have these super strong athletes that are inside the cage doing amazing feats of strength. I thought perhaps they could have worked a little bit of that into this as well. I'm not quite sure what they were looking for as far as their audience went, but the stuff that I've even seen on Instagram and Facebook, it was pretty underwhelming. I mean, listen, not taking nothing away from Joe Sullivan and Brianni T. They're two amazing athletes. I don't know. I mean, watching Joe Sullivan pull 700 a couple times, I don't know. I mean, he does it all the time on Instagram, right? It's. Are we really getting a wow factor at the Olympia? I think we should. I think maybe they should have brought in some of these big influencers that are doing some amazing, 900 shit. They should have brought in Nikos Chaparellis, strongman, who does 910 for a triple. I'd have been more impressed with that. So I don't know. I was a bit underwhelmed by the whole powerlifting scene in there, and I didn't spend a lot of time looking at it. So you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but who were there, of course. I didn't really see a lot that I was super impressed with. I thought, I see this anywhere. But this is the Olympia. I expected to be more wowed by what I was witnessing. But as far as the strongman goes, the America's Strongest Man, America's Strongest Woman. I'm going to try not to be negative on this. First off, I don't know exactly whether or not the America's Strongest Man and the America's Strongest Woman shouldn't be showcased in a standalone event. When I think about America's Strongest Man, I think about an event in itself, like a World's Strongest Man or Rogue Invitational, right? I mean, it's that big to me. Now, I get it. The Arnold down in Columbus have always done their strongman at the Arnold, and we've all loved that, right? That center stage, those big static lifts. I think that's a bit different here. That's more of a strength sort of spectacle, or maybe a strength exhibition. Or I wouldn't call it an exhibition, but you know what I'm saying. It's very unique to itself. When I think about America's Strongest Man and America's Strongest Woman, I think of an event that needs to be showcased on its own, because it kind of washes into the whole expo, and by itself it doesn't stand out at all. It was in a decent spot, I guess, where they could put it best. There was a fair number of spectators around it. Nothing that would blow your mind, which I guess is nothing unusual to the strongman community and some of the events that we see that are very underwhelming when it comes to the amount of spectators that watch it. But I thought that this particular event, witnessing the strongest super heavyweight men in the nation, I just felt like the pageantry should have been better. I don't feel like I was witnessing anything but like a normal nationals or something, not to say that nationals is bad to watch or they don't use good equipment, because they did. All the equipment was fine, but there wasn't a lot of pageantry to it. Being America's Strongest Man, you would think there would be a huge banner with some cool graphics on it that would just call people in and say, this is the America's Strongest Man right here. And there was just none of that. I mean, if I walked by it and didn't know a lot of these people, I would just assume it was just a normal strongman competition at the Olympia. So very, very underwhelming. And listen, that's no knock on Strongman Corp. Well, it's a knock, but I don't think a lot of people get that right. I don't think USS gets it right any more than Strongman Corp does. I don't think a lot of the bigger shows in the nation get that right any better than Strongman Corp does. It's just something we need to continue to work on. So yeah, very underwhelming as far as the pageantry goes to that. Also, it was right next to the Zumba stage. Now, this is to no fault of Strongman Corp and America's Strongest Man, but it was right next to the Zumba stage, which, by the way, we were only about 30 feet away from that ourselves. And that was the most annoying shit in the world, listening to Zumba music. I kid you not, guys. This went on for 8 straight hours of Zumba music. Thank God the announcer at America's Strongest Man, and God, I can't remember your name now, man. I love you announcing, though. And somebody give me that name when this podcast hits. If you know the guy, tag it in one of your comments. I've heard him before. I just can't remember his name. Don from ADL posted something about him. Can't remember his name. He's a great announcer. I think he stood out to me as one of the highlights of that entire event as far as the setup goes and the logistics of it. I mean, he was a necessary person to have because he spoke above that Zumba sound, and he really announced the show well. He got people involved. It wasn't Aaron West, by the way. It was a different announcer who is equally as good, in my opinion. But we certainly aren't short of great announcers in our sport. That's a fact. But the pageantry of the show was very underwhelming. I didn't know why they did 3 different America's Strongest Women. This was weird to me, and I guess I can ask Brian. I can reach out to Strongman Corp, and I don't know if I'll get an answer or not get an answer, unofficial or not. Probably not even bother going down that road because I'm not going to try to be a detective here. But they had America's Strongest Man, but no subdivisions, which is fine because America's Strongest Man has always been by itself an event, right? Which means they didn't bring in the 105ers, the 80s, or the 90s. This was America's Strongest Man, super heavyweights, or whoever, right? The America's Strongest Man all competing. The women, however, did it differently. They had America's Strongest Woman, and then they had a subdivision for 64s and I guess it was 82s. I didn't understand that. Are we talking about America's Strongest Woman in its singularity? Or are we talking about kind of an OSG thing now where we have America's Strongest Woman in every category? Listen, I'm not going to fault if that's the way America's Strongest Man and Strongest Woman want to do things, then I'm all for it. I have no problem with that. But it's just weird when we see kind of it a little bit, but we don't see all of it. The 105ers had their own event, I don't know, 3 months prior. The 80s didn't get their own event. The 90s didn't get their event, but the women get 2 at the America's Strongest Woman. Again, not knocking it. Do you guys see what I'm saying, though? It seems like there's some confusion here on how all this wants to be presented. And then they have a $25,000 grand prize for America's Strongest Woman and America's Strongest Man, which is awesome. I'm not complaining. But then the prize money for the other divisions was like nominal at best. Okay, well, I guess. But therein lies, why would you do them at the same time? Are they any less entertaining than the super heavyweights or the heavyweight women? No, not at all. Did we see some great feats of strength? Absolutely we did from all classes for, being relative to their sizes. So yeah, I just don't understand what the thought process was in that. Maybe trying to produce a show that's going to be longer over the course of 2 days at the Olympia. I don't know, because you guys all know out there that they could speed this shit up. I mean, it's like watching grass grow, honestly. I mean, I'd walk over there sometimes. There'd be nothing going on for like a straight hour while the competitors are all sitting down. And again, I get it. I'm not knocking it from that standpoint. Maybe logistically they had to do it that way. But it's just very underwhelming. And I don't know if we're ever going to get that right in our sport. But shout out to Bobby Thompson. He won, which I thought was a great showing by him. Tyler Cotton, second place, and Trey Mitchell. I kind of was surprised by that. Trey's had a great year. I mean, honestly, Trey was kind of my favorite going into this show. And to see him take third, well, listen, he podiumed, right? You can't win every show. And Trey's one of my favorite strongmen, so I'm not knocking him at all. But I give a lot of props to Bobby Thompson. I mean, he really had a great show, and he won it. Victoria Long, Inez Kataskiel, she took third. And then Olga Lychek took second. Victoria Long is an absolute beast. She is by far, in my opinion, the best strongman strong woman on the planet. The things that she is doing are setting the benchmark for women's strength and strong woman globally. I mean, she is the one to beat. She's the one to chase. She's got no weakness. Now, I'm sure Victoria would tell you, I got a weakness. I don't see it. I don't think anybody else does either. She put up the first 300-pound log in competition. I'm going to say that again so you guys hear me out there. She put a 300-pound log up in competition at that show. By the way, it didn't look like that was that challenging to her. I get it. There was a little bit of a struggle in the mid-range of that movement, but nothing she couldn't have gotten through if that log was 10 or 20 pounds heavier, in my opinion. She's amazing. The bag over bar that she did, I think that was 48 inches, guys. You'd have to check me on that. She did a 350-pound sandbag over a 48-inch bar. It looked like it was 250 pounds because when she extended with the bag, she cleared the bar by 4 inches and literally threw the bag over the bar. Again, it was amazing. So I love the fact that we've got such a great contingency of strong women in our sport coming through, and Victoria's leading the way. So kudos to Victoria and Olga and Inez and Kira Wixon and my friend Steve Eastless, who won the Masters over 50 division. Shout out to you, brother. God damn, I love you. You are one cool dude, and I've said it over and over again. He's one of the nicest guys I ever met in the sport of strongman. And I just met him, but I feel like I've known this guy my entire life. And he's like a brother to me, and I've just hung out with him a few times and interviewed him once. So anyhow, congratulations, Steve. That was another one of my highlights, watching you win that 50-plus division. So congratulations. But there was a question brought up to me, and I don't even want to go down this road. God darn it. But I'm going to, because listen, I'm not going to be a hater here. I think it's worth mentioning, because what I don't understand is, and once again, we don't quite know what the established rules are in our sport. We know invitationals can do whatever the fuck they want, right? We know that's true. We know Rogue Invitational. Oh, by the way, Holly McRae still hasn't heard back from Rogue. So apparently they're just going to try to wait this out and just hope it all goes away, which it's going to. Sadly, Rogue, that's pathetic that you can't respond to her or her coach. But, I guess somebody's telling you what to do over there, and there's some of you that are drinking the Kool-Aid. Be ethical, be moral, do the right thing, and at least reach out to these people. Okay, enough about that. It would be nice to establish some rules, though. So invitationals, you can invite anybody you want. But when it comes to America's Strongest Man or America's Strongest Woman or these other events, right, that represent, I guess you can say, a certain segment of our strongman and strong woman contingency globally, there are some things that are a bit uncertain. And one of the questions I got, see how I'm doing here, guys? I'm dragging my feet through this right now because I don't want to talk about this. Half of you are going to go, fuck you, Joe. I get it. I'm not trying to start a problem here. I'm not. Remember this. Let me preface this by saying I love Olga. I love her. Everybody I meet loves her. She's an amazing strong woman. She has done everything right in her strong woman career. She is at the top of everybody's list for not only who she is as a woman, but who she is as an athlete. And no different here, guys. She's on my list too. But it begs the question, though, because we do need to know this. We need to know. She competed at America's Strongest Woman. Now, I know Olga's not she's not a citizen of the United States. I'm not saying that you have to be. I'm not suggesting she shouldn't have been there. Bear with me here for a minute. But what's the criteria? I mean, I think we all need to know this, right? So we can not have these questions brought up. Because, guys, this question was kind of brought up for me. I kind of didn't even recognize it at first. I kind of thought, oh, yeah, I guess that's right, because I love Olga. I've watched her compete all year round. I don't even question what she does anymore. But this question came to me probably from 20 different people. Oh, I didn't know Olga was an American citizen, or I don't know how'd she get into the show, or however the question was worded to me. And I didn't have any answers. Listen, I'm a fan of Olga's, but it does beg the question that it would be nice to know what these established rules are for qualifying for any strongman show. It lends to the legitimacy of our sport. We can't just do something and go, we did it. We're not going to explain ourselves because it doesn't matter. Listen, I don't think anybody in the world is going to argue with the fact that Olga was at America's Strongest Woman if, in fact, Strongman Corp came out with a statement saying this is why Olga's invited to America's Strongest Woman. Now, I think I know why. I think she lives in Nashville or in Tennessee. She's been here for a long time. Obviously displaced, right? Nobody doesn't support Ukraine. I get it. We all want to see those people do well, and so that's another reason why I'm probably going to get jacked up by a lot of you guys out there saying, you motherfucker. But listen, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it stands to understand what the rules are. If she lives in Nashville and she's been living here for over a year or whatever, right? Whatever the rule is, 6 months, and she's applying for her citizenship, she's a great ambassador of the sport. I mean, I can go on and on and on and give her all the reasons in the world why I think she should have been there. And I have no problem with that. The only problem that I have is I wish we could just know what the rules are, or at the least understand why the decision was made, so we don't have to have these controversies, right? You're not getting these controversies from me right now. I'm not being controversial about this. I'm simply just asking the question that everybody is asking because I'd like to know exactly the answer too. So going forward, we'll know if we see other people in our competitions, maybe that aren't from the United States, right? For America's Strongest Woman. Let's be clear, America's Strongest Woman. Then I would at least go, oh, well, she's there because of this. Oh, the rule does state as long as she's from living here for 6 months, or she's competed in 4 American shows, or whatever the case may be. I'm not knocking it. I'm just asking the question. We need to lend some legitimacy to our sport. We have to figure out, we have to start getting this right, guys. That's all I'm saying. This is just one example. And again, I'm not knocking you, Olga, at all. I love you. I do. I've watched you compete. You're amazing. And I hope you'll even interview with me someday. You might go, screw that guy. Look at the controversy he's starting. But I'm not starting any controversy. I'm just asking the question. I'm just not quite sure. If she gets on the platform, she holds up a Ukrainian flag. And again, okay, I'm an asshole. I get it. It's just support for Ukraine, all that. I get it. But do you guys understand the confusion that I'm kind of presenting here? That wouldn't it be nice to know where these sort of thoughts and these decisions are made through what set of questions or set of parameters that are going to allow in the future when we have all these different people kind of coming into all these different events. And I know we will, and we should embrace everybody, be inclusive, right? Strong man and strong woman needs that kind of love. It just would be nice to know what the established rules are. That way, when we go into these events, we're not scratching our head. Listen, we have a hard enough time with these damn invitationals. We all know it. We have a super hard time dealing with invitationals because they don't make any goddamn sense. Those invitationals are jacked up. And I get it. The invitationals, they do what they want. They pay for the show. Outside of this hiccup this year with Rogue, I would agree with you. However, the Holly McRae thing still is very fresh in my brain. They need to make that right. But yeah, invitationals are invitationals. Shaw has every right to invite anybody he wants to his show. Rogue Invitational outside of this year, right? Asterix has any right or every right in the world to do the same thing. Hell, the world's strongest man, whether you want to admit it or not, guys, is an invitational. There's no qualifier for that bullshit. We all know that is simply an invitation to the top 10 guys and 20 guys that they can all beat, so they can all be there to compete at the end. Sadly, that'll be a topic for another day. But my point is, we need to start having rules and establish rules for all these events, universal or otherwise. If USS and Strongman Corp don't want to play the same game and play the same rules, that's entirely up to them. I would prefer to see some unity when it comes to rules. I would prefer to see that so we can all understand the process and the logistics of all these events. But this just raised that question. How did it happen? I don't know, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just asking the question. And maybe I'm completely aloof, guys. Maybe this was already brought up. Maybe somebody already answered this. Well, like most of the things you try to find in Strong Man or Strong Woman any day when it comes to answers, it's a fucking mystery because you can't even get on social media to find this information out because most of these organizations, as you all know my feelings about that, they never post shit anyhow. So who knows? Nobody's got an answer a lot of times. We're all spent scratching our heads going, how did this happen? I don't know. So anyhow, that's all I'm going to bring up about that. I think that's worth mentioning, and I think I'm just curious because Olga, man, you are awesome. You are one hell of an athlete, and I'm glad we have you. And listen, if we can call Olga Lychek, representing the United States of America, are you fucking kidding me? You're damn right. That's one athlete that we'd love to have on our team, if you know what I mean. So anyhow, just bringing that up, guys, and you guys can call me controversial if you want to. I just think it's worth mentioning, as a lot of things are in this sport. Maybe some things aren't worth mentioning, I should say. You guys read between the lines on that. And another thing. I'll get onto this. Let me get a drink of water. See, here we go, guys. Going down I said, I'm not going to get into Rantsville today. I'm getting into Rantsville. Here we go. This isn't even a bad one either. Actually, I want you guys to know I did some growing over this question. Because when this first came out, I was that guy. One more drink of water, and I'm going to leave the dramatic pause. Ready? Okay, here it is. So I told you on that rant about Holly McRae and Jackie Ozleski. Jackie, I'm getting it wrong again. I get it wrong all the time. Sorry. We did chat, by the way, Jackie and I did. There was another question brought up about that, and I told you guys I would get to it at a later date. And now's the time to do that, I guess, because we talked about Olga. It makes sense. They kind of go together. Is Tamara Walcott and her invitation to the Rogue Arnold Strongman, strong woman there at Rogue. Okay, when I first saw this, God's honest truth, and we all can grow around here, I was like, what the hell? I'm like a lot of you guys out there. I was looking going, wait a minute, is she a pro-strong woman, right? Almost my knee-jerk reaction to that was, I don't know about this. This doesn't make any sense. I questioned this, and I did. I think I said a question. Is she a strong woman? I'm glad I didn't have that podcast or talk about that on that podcast that night, because I have completely thought about this in great detail. And something happened to me at the Olympia that just gave it an exclamation point as to why I have no problem with Tamara competing as a strong woman at the Rogue at the Arnold. In large part, I think we owe the history of our sport to those type of decisions, to let other people participate in our sport that we think would be good at our sport. I'll give you just 2 examples, and you tell me out there when you hear these names, would you not want these people to be around? Mitch Hooper was a power lifter before he was invited to do strongman. At a high level, by the way, world's strongest man. Think about that. Mitch Hooper is one of the coolest guys in the sport of strongman. He is completely hook, line, and sinker became and is a strongman representing Canada and representing the entire world at the highest level. He's a great individual. I've seen a lot of his interviews. I've seen a lot of his interactions. Haven't had the pleasure of talking to him myself. But can any one of us say out there we wish Mitch Hooper wasn't around? Listen, there's a good chance that could have happened, or him not being around. He was a power lifter. He was a great power lifter, and he was given an opportunity to do something that any one of us out there, if we had the ability, would love the opportunity to do. And that being an opportunity to be the strongest man in the world. So no, I don't want strongman to be without Mitch Hooper. So why would I want it to be without Tamara Walcott? Listen, she's a super strong person. I mean, she's a 600-plus squatter. She's a 600-plus deadlifter. She's arguably, right now, whether she competed in strong woman or not, one of the strongest women in the world. So let's be clear. So the only real problem we have is saying it's a strong woman competition. And the real problem that we have with this, if you do have a problem with this, is we don't want to identify with our sport like strong woman without setting some criteria. So I understand the frustration, guys. I do. Because we want to legitimize our sport. We want this sport to stop being the Wild West and start being more organized. But do we really? Think about what you're asking. Because much of the history of strongman and strongwoman has been built on these type of things, on these type of opportunities. That's what makes our sport really unique. So at the very least, in an invitational, we should all continue to support these type of athletes getting invitations, because we love to challenge ourselves against, well, everybody, right? Well, why not challenge yourself like these other women against Tamara? I'm sure they want to. You'll get no complaint out of anybody that'll be up on the stage with her. I guarantee it. I guarantee you right now, all those women, who are going, Hannah and Melissa and Victoria and Nadia, they're not thinking of anything other than, I need to make sure that I can beat this girl in this competition. Like they're thinking that about every one of their competitors that are going to this competition. She's not being put in a different category. Like, I don't have to worry about her. Listen, she's strong as all get up, and she'll sneak up on you. And nobody really knows how she's going to fare in all these different events, which, oh, by the way, I'll let you know what these events are here. I saved them on my phone. I had to find them today. And we can argue a few things here, so let's do it. Wheel of Pain. Okay. It's going to be heavy, right? Conan's wheel. I guess they don't have a right to call it that anymore, but it's the Rogue Wheel of Pain. Now, I don't know. Is Tamara going to be good at that? Well, she's certainly good in her lower body, right? Her posterior chain, her quads. I mean, she's a squatter and deadlifter. Outside of holding that up to her chest, That would be the real question, right? Because she's going to be a walk a mile with this thing. The real question comes in, is she a presser? Is she an overhead presser? Yeah, I would question that. I'm sorry, Tamara, I would question that. Are you an overhead presser? Elephant bar deadlift? Yeah, she's going to go in as a favorite, I would say, right? She's a world record holder, strongest, biggest deadlift ever recorded. So, okay, she's good there. The stone throw, that's a bit different. I'm not sure how well she's going to do there. If she's not going to be a good presser, I don't know how she's going to be a good stone thrower. And then timber frame carry. I don't know. Jury's out. How good's her grip? I don't know. What I'm getting at is I don't think any of us really know. So, and before we argue the fact that she's there, let's see how she does. Because the same argument could have been made for Mitch Hooper. The same argument. I could have gone down the list of events that this guy was going to compete in, and I probably should have done my research, and said to all you, well, is he going to be good at this, and this? Well, pie on our face, the guy fucking dominates. He's great at everything. So we shouldn't just jump to the conclusion that she doesn't deserve to be there. Now, I hope Rogue got it right? Because the worst thing that we could see is her getting on stage and not performing well. Now, we don't need to perform well in all events. We know it's strongwoman. We know it's strongman. That's not what this sport's about. You just got to be decent at all events. You don't have to dominate every one of them. So I'm going to put her in a couple events that she's going to do really well in, and the jury is still out on the other events. But we shouldn't discount the fact that she deserves to be there, because that is the history of our sport. That is what we've always done since the beginning of time. In 1970, the beginning of time, right? In 1971 or 1972, when World's Strongest Man first became World's Strongest Man. Can you guys remember those people that competed in that? I mean, geez, for years, it was just the most hodgepodge bunch of guys. And those are some of the best episodes I think any of us have ever watched, because they were all given an opportunity to be strong. And as this sport has grown, we certainly have divided like the Red Sea. We know who strong men and strong women are now. But let's not forget where this all started, is my point. There are still some very strong men and strong women out there that don't compete in our sport that I think we'd all like to see them compete. And maybe like Mitch Hooper, if Tamara does really well or she falls in love with competing on that Arnold stage, wouldn't it be fun to watch her compete in more events in 2023 against the biggest names in the strong woman community across the world? I can tell you right now, I would love to see that. So I would caution all you guys out there that want to try to make this sport as pure as the driven snow, right? Let's make all these rules and all these regulations, much like I talked about Olga and what my thoughts were about that. There are some things that deserve some explanation. There are other things that, quite frankly, they don't. And if you just look at it from a different lens, I think you would agree with me. You don't have to be a strong woman or strong man to compete in strongman or strong woman. You just need to be a strong man or strong woman. How do you like that? I mean, that doesn't make any sense, but it makes a lot of sense. And I want our sport to be inclusive like that, because there are a lot of people out there we want to introduce to the sport. And oh, by the way, you guys know who Tamara's following is on Instagram and Facebook? She probably has got more followers than anybody else in the sport of strongman and strongwoman. So by design, we want her in our sport, right? Because we want more consumers to see how awesome our sport is, and we want more sponsors to jump on board with that right now. And so not only is she strong, but she's popular. Yeah, whether you want to hear that or not, that's a lot to do with the way these invitationals work. So no fault to you, Rogue, as much as you pissed me off 2 weeks ago. I get it. That's the right thing to do. That's growing your brand. That's growing the business. I'll give you the last name because I don't even think I need to now, but I want to tell you how this concluded for me. This concluded for me when I met Magnus for Magnuson out in Las Vegas and had a chance to spend about 30 minutes with him before the interview. And I spent some time with him interviewing him and some time after. I felt like I got to know him, right? Listen, if anybody's ever met Magnus out there, you get to know this guy pretty quick because he is the most personable guy you'll ever meet in your life. We talked about his big show, the Magnus for Magnuson, the Iceland Classic out there, which, by the way, ooh, boy, that we're going to talk about that more in the future. After talking to Magnus, boy, there's a lot of cool things happening with that show. But let me get back on what I was talking about. We wouldn't, in our sport, we would have a piece of history removed from our sport, that being the most iconic name in strongman, Magnus ver Magnuson, if he wasn't invited to his first World's Strongest Man as an alternate from what? Powerlifting. The only reason he's in strongman today is because he was a world-class powerlifter that was invited to the World's Strongest Man, and he never looked back. And he won 4 titles, came in second a half dozen times. He's arguably one of the most iconic figures that our sport has ever had. And thank God he was invited to do the World's Strongest Man, because we would have a piece of history removed if he wasn't. And we can all say right now that would be a sad day, because we all know it as what it is right now, if Magnus for Magnuson wasn't a part of our strongman community. So I'm going to leave you with those thoughts when it comes to Tamara Walcott. And it was at that moment when I was talking to Magnus that I said, you know what? You're exactly right. And my thought process was, it put a stamp on it, and it just said to me, she deserves to be there, because boy, wouldn't it be great to see another Mitch Hooper or another Magnus for Magnuson. And now the women can experience that as well. So anyhow, that's where I'm going with that, guys. And I hope you guys appreciated the show here today. I did a lot of rambling. Some big things to talk about coming up in the strongman community as we get closer to, well, not even closer to it. We'll probably start talking about it next week. That being the War of the North. That's Traverse City competition, War of the North. By the way, guys, I'm in that show now. George had been so kind. He was so kind to you, George. All the shit talking I did in that show leading up to it about getting you guys to be a part of it. He has put me in the open heavyweight class, not the master's class, but the open heavyweight class, which the weight is considerably heavier. So now it's a put up or shut up moment for me. So, hey, we all need to be challenged. And I guess that's the challenge that's laid before me now, is to at least go up there and push these guys a little bit, right? Hey, guys, I'm not supposed to beat you. Remember that. But don't let the old guy beat you, okay? Don't let him do it. Because I'm going to give it all I got for sure. But that's going to be fun. So I'm going to be competing up there doing that with those guys. And I need something to look forward to myself. I'm ready to have a great 2023. So that'd be a great way to start, getting under some heavyweight with all these young guys and making some waves. Also, too, this deserves mentioning, and this is just so awesome. I've been so excited about this for the last week and a half since the posting started on this show. Luke Davies, friend of mine, great representative, ambassador for the strongman community in overseas in England and Great Britain. He's from Wales, by the way. Luke would want me to tell you that. He's doing some stuff with KAOS Promotions right now that I think we all are just looking at right now, and just with the biggest smiles on our faces. He's doing a World U90 show over there. I can't remember what was the name of the show, Luke. It was the U90 Classic. And guys, I cannot tell you how excited I am for this show. It's going to be in England. I am going to England for the show. I talked to Luke. I'm flying out there for a week. I'm going to be a big part of this when it comes to getting content back to you guys. ADL's going out there. Is going to live stream for you. I'm going to do the pregame show for ADL. I'm more excited, honestly, about watching this competition take place. It has got the biggest names in the U90 class, and I mean the biggest names. And when I tell you who we were missing at OSG, that being CJ Pierce, he's going to be there. And this is important, right? Because Tyler Davis wants this. Oh, he does. Trust me. I haven't talked to him about it, but Tyler no doubt wants CJ Pierce, because it's the only thing keeping him from officially being, and I get it. Tyler, you are that guy right now. I get it 100%. I've said it. I've said it time and time again. Nobody wears the crown than you right now. But I think we can all say there was a part 2 to this movie, and it couldn't be played out any better than CJ Pierce coming up, because he missed OSG. And the one guy Tyler needs to beat, I think we would argue this, Tyler, is CJ Pierce. This is going to be a battle for the ages. And I'm not taking away from anybody else there, guys. By the way, Tyler Young's going to be there. 105er coming down to 90. Matt McKeegan's going to be there. 105er coming down to 90. This is going to be a crazy show. The lineup for this that keeps coming out, my God, I think I actually spoiled it. Luke, I'm going to call you, because I don't think anybody knew CJ was going there yet. Shit. I might cut this out of the show. But in any case, it is going to be the biggest 90 show on the planet. What Luke is doing over there with KAOS Promotions and this show is the tip of the iceberg with the kind of shows that I know Luke has been wanting to produce for all this time that I've known him. He's finally pulling the trigger on it, and I have no doubt in my mind, immediately Luke Davies and KAOS Promotions and Rio over there are putting themselves on top of the food chain when it comes to the kind of shows that they're producing, starting with this U90 Classic. Last year, the 105ers were the global sweethearts. this year the U90s are. Trust me when I tell you, the craziest athletes, the most entertaining competitions from now all the way until OSG of 2023 are going to be in this U90 class. So pay close attention, guys, because this one now is attracting 105ers dropping weight that are on the top of the world in a 105 to come down and compete as well. Be ready. It's going to be a fucking crazy show, and I'm super stoked that I could be a part of it, not just from afar, but I'll be right there in England and checking the show out with my own eyes right there live. So I'll get ready. I'll be saying much more about that, and I got to make sure I can even release this now because I don't think everybody knows these other people are involved. So in any case, there you go. Some insider information. If I release it, maybe you'll get it before Luke even says, and he'll just give me permission. But in any case, thanks for the ramble. Thanks for the show today, guys. I got off on a couple tangents there, but hopefully I entertained you. Hopefully I gave you some good information. Hopefully I got you excited about things. We got a lot of strongman going on right now just because that's just kind of what we got going on. The Olympia concluded bodybuilding season. However, we got a lot of real cool stuff coming on with bodybuilding next year as well. Shout out to Stephanie Jones. Stephanie Jones from Michigan. I think she was in the top 10, that being in the fitness class. Also, too, a lot of powerlifting coming our way as well, in large part to a lot of the different facilities that we pay close attention to are going to be doing a lot of meets. They're just releasing their schedules right now. And then, of course, USAPL is going to kick off their season in 2023 in January, and we'll be a part of that, too, with our live stream. So, anyhow, coming to you from the Iron Sanctum Studios here in Flint, Michigan, I will sign off now. Joe Janiga, stay strong.